Oh wow. Here I am thinking I was gonna find some witty means of saying hello, and instead I am just standing here in abject terror. Welcome, fellow book nerds and general YouTube population. I'm Katie and this is my Booktube Newbie Tag. So this tag, most of you who have been around Booktube know, was started by Brenda C. If that video still exists, because it's several years old, I will link it down below. This video is one that is way overdue. I started this channel back in March of 2017. May of 2017 was the last time I think I uploaded. Some of the questions in this tag will actually reveal why it is that my original efforts to start a channel derailed and why I'm restarting now. So I'm going to, without further ado, get into it. I have the questions here. The first one is, why did I start this channel? I found Booktube in October of 2015. I was actually looking for videos related to NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. I stumbled across Christina Horner's channel and I loved her NaNoWriMo vlogs, and then of course I started looking through her other videos and found her Booktube videos, and it just went from there. I found other Booktubers, started watching, I was just so excited. It was perfect because late 2015 I was starting to come off of what I term the great reading slump. This was a reading slump that was about 2.5 years. Yeah, that was just a hard time in my life, and I don't know if I was about to say hard or harsh. Both kind of work. Anyway, my inability to articulate aside was coming back into reading at about the same time that I discovered Booktube. I really wanted to start a Booktube channel because I wanted an outlet for these very usually long-winded opinions that I have about the books I read and reading in general and other types of storytelling. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? Okay, so I don't know how much overlap I'm gonna have with other Booktubers. I'm sure that there are going to be a bunch of us who have interests in common, but basically you're not just gonna hear about books from me. I'm also a writer. I am currently working on a manuscript that I hope to submit to agents this summer. I also am in grad school for TV production and screenwriting. Career-wise, I really want to have 2 lives as a novelist and a writer-director. You're going to get the entire storytelling gamut. When I'm not doing anything book or film related, I volunteer with a Lucasfilm affiliate nonprofit group called Saber Guild. We put on lightsaber shows. I ride horses. I actually own a young thoroughbred. I am a proud mom to 2 cats, 2 rescue cats, a Siamese, Teo, and a black domestic short hair, Mistopheles. And what else? Oh, most of my vlogs are going to be me being out and about, and usually books will tie in somehow. I love going places. And I did my study abroad in Japan. I actually studied Japanese. I only got to an intermediate level, but that travel bug has never left me. I have so many other hobbies, but I feel like I've talked about enough of them. I'm one of those people that has just dabbled in a lot of things in my life. I feel like now it's time to move on to question 3. I think I've rambled long enough. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I need an outlet for all of my bookish and writing and storytelling opinions. I'm also excited that I actually get to make films. Like, YouTube videos are essentially short films. I don't need to go and get investors. I don't need to get a studio on board. I just do this in my bedroom and it's awesome. Why do you love reading? Basically, books were always a way for me to go places that I didn't necessarily have the ability to go in person. Paris or Japan or you know, like Scotland, you name it. And the other thing was that books were a kind of power in and of themselves. So they were, even in the most painful circumstances or the most difficult times that I experienced, they were proof that there was something else out there. Something worth looking for, worth pursuing, worth hanging on for. They were like a source of optimism even when I didn't necessarily have a lot of optimism myself. And they're a source of infinite possibilities. I love fantasy in particular. And it's like, if we could create anything, what would we make? Or how would we do it differently? I think that's about as condensed an answer as I can give that question. So let's go on to question number 5. What book or series got you into reading? Don't get me wrong, there were picture books that I remember my mom reading to me as a kid that I was obsessed with, like Goodnight Moon, Lyle Lyle Crocodile, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, but the ones that got me into reading, where I'm actually picking up the book myself, there are 2 that stand out more than any others. And they are The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I am going to tear up just holding it. I was introduced to the cartoon film that was made back in the 70s by my grandmother, and I loved that film. I was obsessed with that film. Then I found out that it was a book. My grandmother had this exact copy. Let me pull up some of the illustrations. So for example, here we have Bilbo showing the Arkenstone to the Elven King and Bard the Bowman. And isn't that beautiful? My camera's not even picking up all the detail. I just was enthralled with the illustrations, and then as I was taught to read, I started reading passages, and then I started reading chapters, and then I read the whole thing. The series that I started being introduced to, my grandmother bought me the classic hardcover Nancy Drew. This one, number 5, The Secret of Shadow Ranch, is my favorite out of all of them. I've reread this more times than any other Nancy Drew book, probably because it has horses. This was the first series that I ever became obsessed with, and it was when I was handed Nancy Drew that reading really became a constant. Like, I was never able to go anywhere without a book in my hands at all, period. So these two in particular. And then there are other, like, honorable mentions. Arthur Conan Doyle was probably the first 19th century, classic that I ever read, and I love Sherlock Holmes. All right, I think that's enough for that question. Let's move on to number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I've gotten to go to a couple of events where some of my favorite booktubers have been there, and I was able to actually talk with them and ask them questions, so nothing's really jumping out at me, so I think we're gonna move on. Actually, I'm gonna take one moment to say to any booktuber who I have met in person and I have asked questions and you've answered them, I loved meeting all of you. Thank you so much for, being, cumulative inspirations to start this channel, so just thank you guys, really. Hi everyone, it's Katie from the future. As I was editing, I realized that actually I do have a question for one of my favorite booktubers, and that is for Kat from Catty-tastic. We haven't gotten a writing update from you in a while. What are you working on right now, and is it something that we might see you publish in the future? And is it by any chance in the fantasy genre? There we go, 3-part question. I don't know if Kat will ever see it, but if you wanted to know what would I ask one of my favorite booktubers, that's it. Number 7, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? Okay, so I actually have had some experience in this. First off is actually keeping to an upload schedule. The second thing, I think I definitely bit off more than I could chew last year with my expectations of myself. My expectation that I could just shrug off the fact that I have a history of stage fright and camera shyness. I literally started filming myself all the time just because I was determined that I was going to work my way out of that fear. But that being said, there are times when I still get really nervous being in front of a camera. It's something that flares up every once in a while. The upload schedule, uploading multiple times a week and trying to build your subscriber count. For now, I need to have lower expectations of myself and be nicer to myself. And the third thing is that editing is a bitch. I'm using Adobe Premiere, which is a great program to know, but it's a beast to learn from the ground up. And then lastly, although this is a temporary one, being a grad student, I am paying a lot of money to get this degree. I need to do the work and actually get the degree, or else I'm in debt for nothing. So those 4 things. Okay, question number 8. When did you start reading? My mother and my grandmother are both librarians. My mother actually just retired this past year. She and my grandmother started reading to me when I was a baby. So books have always been a part of my life. I really started to read on my own probably around age 6. Number 9, where do you read? Anywhere. Anywhere except the toilet or the shower. I try every once in a while if I'm taking like a bath to read, but I'm always terrified that I'm gonna drop the book in the water or that I'm just gonna get it wet, even if you have one of those trays. Number 10. Yay, we're at the last question. What kind of books do you like to read? So I've already mentioned I'm big into fantasy and mystery. I do love me some sci-fi, love historical fiction, and manga. I love Marvel and DC, so you will get graphic novels. I read both young adult and adult. Those are the big ones. I'm not huge into contemporary. Every so often I do find a contemporary that is fun, but it's a very small percentage of my reading. Romance. I hate the romance genre. Let's just get that out there. Almost always the romances I root for are the ones in books that really are not about the romance. If you try to shove it in my face, I get very annoyed because I feel like you're trying too hard. Don't tell me someone is sexy. I'll make up my own mind what I think of their appeal. I think that's a good start. With that, I am going to say thank you. I am going to attempt, schedule permitting, to upload every Thursday, and my goal for the time being is going to be 1 video per week. You can find my social media links below. I hope you'll hit that subscribe button. Bye for now.